I'm Paul Healy. I'm a set decorator for film and television.
My first question is, growing up, what did you want to be?
A pilot.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. But I have to admit, when I was about 14, I do remember I remember watching Entertainment Tonight,
Mm.
and I saw a grip walk behind an interview with some star. I believe it was for Shogun. So this something from the 70s, right? And I just remember thinking, wow, there's people there. That's cool. So I do remember thinking that and going, hey, I wouldn't mind doing that, being in the movie business. So yeah.
When did you first get into set decorating?
Um, when did I first get into set decorating? I think maybe when I was about 26. So let me think. Let me do some math. So 25 years ago, maybe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
How did you first get into the industry? What was your first like job?
I was going to I was going to be a lawyer, and I was going to school, and I fell into this to help pay for school.
Hmm.
And then I realized it was kind of funner than being a lawyer. So I quit law school, and everything I was doing towards that, and just jumped right into this, and just did a little bit of everything in the beginning, and then so I started when I was about 18, and then by the time I was, yeah, about 6 or 7 years later, I realized like SEDTech was really the place for me to be. But in the meantime, I had done all the other departments, so I really got to see how they all work together to make a film, because it really is a collaboration at the end of the day.
Yeah. Can you remember the first project you worked on or the first thing you worked on
The
regardless?
first project I worked on, I think, was Dead Bang, maybe with Don Johnson, or maybe it was Heaven and Earth. I can't remember. That was a long time ago, but it was it was yeah. There was a couple of projects in the late '80s that I started on. So yeah,
How did you work your way up and get better at what you do?
I just I think by working in all of the departments and really learning and really paying attention. In all honesty, I learned from people who I thought were doing it badly, and I learned from people who I thought were doing it good. And I just thought, well, I think learning from people who aren't very good at their job is as important as learning from people who are good at their job, because then you figure out what you would do differently, to
Hmm.
not put them down, but to figure out how you would do it differently if you were in charge.
Well, speaking of learning from people, what type of people have inspired you in the industry? Like growing up or in that specific time when you were just starting out?
I don't know that I can point to a specific person. It's just people I've met along the way. But I don't know that I mean, I always looked up to Dante Ferretti because I loved how he designed things. But I mean, other than that, I don't know. I've just taken it day by day and meet who I meet as I'm going along the journey.
What would you say is the biggest challenge of your job versus the biggest reward?
Well, it's constant art meets commerce, which is a constant battle. So you're trying to be creative all day long, but you also have to be administrative all day long. And so, it's decorating, especially, is not something that's easy to quantify. So it's like, why do you need six pillows on a couch when you could have two?
Mhm.
Try explaining that to a producer. Whereas why you need four 2x4s to build a box or whatever. But yeah, so it's a constant battle of art meeting commerce.
Mhm.
So, and that's daily, every day, all day, forever. But it is just part of the job.
Well, what does being a set decorator entail, like entirely?
I'm Well, really, you're meeting with the director and the production designer, and you're all figuring out together. The director needs a world to tell his story in, and then we have to figure out how much of a world he needs, and then me and the designer and the art directors figure out how big of a world to create, and then that's when the battle begins for how are we going to pay for creating this world so that they can tell their story.
What's your favorite thing about what you do?
What is? Hmm. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I think the favorite thing about what I do is that I'm in charge of my own atmosphere. I get to hire people and encourage them because I want a happy creative environment. So I want to keep them out of the crap and keep them focused on the art all the time. So I think that's the best part of my job and my position.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get involved with a project? How does that process work for you?
Um, well, I've been doing this so long. There's always 6 degrees of everything. So, as soon as you find out a project's coming that you're interested in, I'll find out who's doing it and who do they know that I know. And then I get my name in there. I mean, in Hollywood, most people have an agent to do that. I haven't found that necessary. So I just keep plugging along and doing my own networking and be my own agent and find the projects I want to do.
What's it like seeing the final product for you?
I don't always see the final product. It's a weird thing with me. You would think that the first thing you want to do is go see the movie you just worked on, but sometimes you don't, I don't know. I just don't want to see it. I know what's going to happen. The whole reason I love movies is because I want to be lost in them. And so to watch my own movies, I know what's going to happen. So I don't know. For some reason, it's hard to watch it as a movie for me. The Last of Us was a good example of it was so well done, so well written, so well everything that I was actually able to watch it as a consumer instead of as a person who worked on it.
How does being a set decorator impact the way you digest any media, not just your own movies and TV, but just like media as a whole?
I think I watch things that I wouldn't watch.
Mm.
Um, Normally, so I watch everything, whether it's good or bad or whatever, because sometimes I'm trying to figure out who the people I'm going to work with, what they're about, or what their style is. So I end up watching pretty much everything, whether it's in my wheelhouse or not. I just watch everything.
Is there a particular set decoration that you've seen recently that stood out to you that you really liked?
The Crown, the Crown's amazing to me. I love that. That was beautifully done, well done. Love that. Love that. That's I'd say right up there. I'd love to do something like that.
How does the genre of a film change a set decoration? Like The Crown, that's a very dramatic piece of media. How does the genre impact your decoration?
I don't know. I try to work on things that I try to find clients that want real settings instead. Some movies are meant to be theatrical or graphic novels or
Mhm.
not be real world. I prefer to work on things that the client wants a real world, and so everything's real. So if it's a period movie, right now I'm working on an 1850s piece. Everything's got to be from the 1850s. I don't know. That's my main thing. I really like to work on stuff that wants reality, not just theatrical things. Yeah,
How would you describe yourself as a set decorator?
that I don't know. Particular. I'm very particular. I'm picky. I'm driven. I constantly battling to get the best stuff in front of the camera.
Hmm.
Um, and I all I really care about is that they like me on the last day, but I know that in the middle part there's going to be confrontations because making movies is expensive, but my job is to push to make it better, whether they realize it or not. So at the end, as long as they're happy in the end, that's what matters.
Yeah. And when it comes to your process, when you're first when you first get on a project, what's the first thing you do? Like what does your process entail?
Um, well, honestly, nowadays it depends on the genre, honestly, but especially if it's a period piece, the main thing is to start looking for things in the world. How can I get them to me? How can I get them to the movie set? I'm in Canada. We don't have a lot of prop shops here, and it's not always conducive to go to LA or New York to bring things in because now I've wasted all my money on shipping and things like that. So I think the first thing I do is try and find out what's what I can get my hands on, and then I try to influence the design with the things I can actually get, as opposed to them just dreaming up a design and then I'm stuck trying to fit their design.
Mhm.
So if you can meet in the middle, um, then it is just a better way to go, and you can achieve a better set.
What's the difference for you on working on a movie versus television?
Well, television's a grind. You're building one episode and then you're working on the next episode already. And whereas movie, you have one script and one meeting and you just plug ahead and make it. I mean, it's I think they're both satisfying in certain ways, but television's definitely a harder process because you just keep moving forward and there's no end in sight till it's over, whereas a feature film is just it's just you spend a lot more time planning and preparing and then just carrying out, whereas television's a lot of running and gunning.
Hmm. Going back in time, is there any film you wish you could have worked on?
Is there any film? Goodfellas, perhaps, or I think that's the I'd love to do something with Martin Scorsese. That would have been cool. Yeah, yeah. That's the only one I can think of. That would be really neat to work on. Yeah.
Are there any other people you really want to work with in the future?
No, I really don't have those aspirations. I really enjoyed working with Jason Reitman. I would like to work with him again. I think he's a brilliant filmmaker. Um, I'd like to work with Craig Mazin again because he what he did on The Last of Us, I think, is genius. But I don't know that there's anybody I'm looking forward to. I don't like to set myself up for disappointment, so I don't actually aspire to work with anybody. I really just take it as it comes.
Hmm. Well, well, I read where you talked about how much easier you make the actor's job by creating this environment for them. And as
Well,
an actor myself, I understand exactly what that means. But can you talk a bit more about this and how you go about that?
it's just nice when the actors can walk into a room
Mhm.
and they're already in their character, and you helped that situation. That happened a lot on The Last of Us. The actors would walk in and they're like, "This is a real world. Holy crap!" They really appreciate that all the details you put into it. You realize it was worth all of the effort, and they get a better performance out of it. So you really feel like you're actually adding to the movie, other than just making some sets for the movie.
Can you remember, like, on any project that you've worked on, something that was really difficult to find? Like an object that was really difficult to find or something that was really difficult
Too
to,
many to mention.
yeah.
Too many to mention. Way too many to pick one. But once I realize I have to have something in a movie, it has
Mhm.
to be there. Then it's all hands on deck. We're finding that. Then I got to fight for how expensive it is, how it's going to get here. Because once you find it, that's just part of the problem. Now you got to convince them to allow you to bring it here. You
Mhm.
know, but I believe sometimes you got to spend $10,000 on one item and then $1 on the next 20. But you do find things that you just have to have to really sell the story that you're doing. But I can't think of anything in particular. It's just happens so often because where we are, everything is piecemeal. So yeah.
How does budget impact you? I'm sure it really impacts you, but what's your personal experience like with budget when it comes to different projects?
Well, budget's everything, but actually, if you've got too high of a budget, that can be more of a burden than anything. It's nice when you have a middle ground budget where everyone's got to do a little compromising. And I think it makes everybody work a little harder too.
Mhm.
Too high a budget can get crazy because you just got to make it happen. And too small a budget is sad because you're not. It's like you really can't do. It's frustrating.
Mhm.
But if everybody's making a small movie, or then it's okay. If the director, the actor, if everybody's on board with, we've only got $1, then it's fun. It's very fun. But if somebody's got aspirations above your budget, it's very difficult and frustrating.
Well, when it comes to working with people and compromising and such like that, what makes somebody easy and fun to work with for you?
Uh, it's just nice when they ask you what you think and then they actually want to hear it. There's
Hmm.
nothing more frustrating than they ask you, what do you think? You tell them and then they don't want to listen. It's like, well, why did you ask me? I'm pretty aggressive that way though. I like, don't ask me what you think, if what I think, if you don't want me to tell you, because I will tell you.
Hmm. Can you think of any moments where it was like your favorite project to ever work on and everyone was great and everything went great? I mean, I'm sure there's always challenges in everything you work on, but um, can you think of
My
a
favorite project to date is The Last of Us because all of the good erased all of the bad.
yeah.
Um, so then all of the bad seemed worth it to me in the end. I mean, I also really enjoyed Ghostbusters because again, I really liked working with Jason Reitman. I think he's a true filmmaker, so that's cool. And even Christopher Nolan. I mean, it's crazy working with him because nobody knows what's going on other than him. But you have faith that he's got it under control, so you just blindly follow him. So, yeah.
I think that that's a perfect transition to your work. But really quickly, before I ask you about that, when it comes to being a set decorator, do you have any advice for kids who want to go into set decorating or want to go into that side of the industry?
Advice. Well, I think you really need to want to do it. I think if you're going to get into set decoration, the beginning of it, you're going to be basically be moving furniture and doing a lot of laborious work. But if you're there doing that because you love this and you're paying attention to what's going on, you can get out of that very quickly. And
Mm,
just if you want, it's simple. If you want to be involved, be involved. Or if you just want to move furniture, just move furniture. But I think it's up to every individual to easily be involved or not. It's totally up to you. It's
mhm.
all about enthusiasm at the end of the day.
That's great advice. Um,
Yeah.
moving on to some of your work, I'm going to start here with Interstellar. How did you get involved with this project?
A friend of mine from LA, Gary Fettis, he called. He said he's coming up, and he said, "Would you want to do it?" It was just that simple, and like that was a. And I had already worked with Christopher Nolan on Inception at that point, so I knew what I was in for because it's tricky working on Nolan pictures because he's a bit of a genius savant kind of person. So again, you just have to have faith in what he's doing. So I think because I had already worked with him and then I had a connection, I think it just happened that way. And I mean, I've been more of a jobist than a careerist because I have a daughter.
Hmm.
So up until now, I've been raising her. So every chance I had to work at home, that's what I've tried to do. So
Yeah.
now that she's grown, now I'm probably going to try and work more out in the world. But so that just happened that perfect timing, perfect everything, and it came here, and so it was a great show to work on.
How did you approach it when you first started working on it, especially with a good chunk of it taking place on a spaceship?
Well, the spaceship part was all done in LA. So frankly, I didn't have a great deal to do with that. There was so much to do on that movie that it was done in so it was done in pieces. Oh, my iPad's got 10%. We should be okay. Um, yeah, because didn't bring my plug with me. So really, like more, the LA team did the spaceship, and then we did all the exterior stuff. So while they were doing that, we were doing this up here.
Mhm.
But it was just that. So that's what's cool is you've got a farmhouse and a spaceship. It's fun to work on a movie that has such opposing things,
Yeah.
especially from a set decorating point of view. It was very cool.
What research went into it for you?
Most it's all research. I mean, you
Uh-huh.
have to do so much research so that you're the smartest person in the room because a director doesn't always know. He knows what he wants, and he'll think he knows, but you have to be willing to tell him you're wrong, because and have the confidence to know that I've read into this. You're wrong. This is what it should be. And 9 times out of 10 they'll appreciate it. And when they don't, it's like, well, that's too bad. You're only ruining your own movie. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite memories that stick out to you from working on this project?
Just all of it. I mean, it was just a fun time, and it was a good time in my career. It was a good time. It was literally, even half of it was filmed 10 minutes away from where I live, and I live in the country, so it was just a nice project to work on.
Do
You
you have a,
know,
do you have a particular space that sticks out to you from that movie that you remember creating?
I really enjoyed being inside the farmhouse, and I really, the day that Matthew McConaughey came, they kicked everyone off the set, and Matthew McConaughey and myself kind of hung out for a half an hour, and he's like, hey, where do I keep my pens? Hey, where do I, like, he really wanted to enjoy the house and figure out, which was really neat. That was really neat, and very impressive to see an actor doing that. And he came up with suggestions to write on the calendar, and just so he then came in and helped finish the set decoration in a weird kind of way.
Hmm. Does that happen often with actors?
Yeah. No, not in that at that level, but it does happen. But with him, it was just really special. You could tell he's a different kind of actor because of how into it he was.
Hmm. That's really cool. Moving on to Ghostbusters Afterlife. How did you approach this movie when you started working on it? Is the Ghostbusters franchise a franchise you have history with?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up watching it, so
Yeah.
it was clear to me what needed to be done. It was also clear to me what Jason Reitman had such a stake in it because it's his legacy. So you felt empathy for that. So right off the bat, you just wanted to help. Whatever I can do to help you make this awesome, because the pressure's over him to, like, he's already in an nepotistic world because it's his dad's project, and but he's a filmmaker in his own right. Regardless, he's amazing. So,
Yeah, similar to that, can you talk more a bit how the past of Ghostbusters impacted your set decoration?
well, it was very important to me that that any Easter eggs we threw in the movie had to be perfect and bang on. Otherwise, people were going to freak out on that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was a hyper focus on that. So yeah.
Well, what was it like decorating the farmhouse since there was the unique element of it being a combination between an interior and exterior set going on there?
Well, but you're decorating a farmhouse of a crazy scientist, so that just
Yeah.
adds a whole new element that allows you to just basically decorate a house and then take the house and just shake it up and put it, and then whatever lands. Like that was a fun set to do.
Hmm. When you're talking about Easter eggs and about that, was there any old props that were used from other movies, or was everything kind of entirely new?
No, we had to recreate everything. We couldn't find anything, so we had to recreate the car. We had to recreate all of the props, all of the set dressing, anything that was from the old movies. Uh, we had to find or recreate somehow.
Oh, that's difficult.
Very
Um,
difficult.
yeah, can you think of kind of a hard question, but can you think of is there a hardest set like prop that was difficult for you to create? Can you think of any?
Well, to create now, but the heart, there was a heart pump that's
Mhm.
from the first movie when they're getting kicked out of their dorm. There's this orange angioplasty machine that they're pushing in. Now, it wasn't even part of the movie, but we really felt it needed to be in the lab. So it took us 2 months to find it, and then we finally found one.
Goodness.
So yeah, and now Sony's holding on to it just in case they need it again.
Hmm. Can you think of a favorite memory that sticks out to you from your time working on that movie? Difficult question, but
I don't know. I just any interaction I had with Jason Reitman. I really like working with a filmmaker
hmm.
who's who he might, and even if he has outbursts or pressures, you understand why, and he's really knows what he's doing. So it's very easy to work with him because it's a collaboration.
Hmm. And considering you do have a history with the Ghostbusters and watching it growing up, what was it like working on something like that that you have like that you remember from your childhood, if you know what I mean?
It's awesome. It makes you realize you're in the movie business because
Hmm.
you remember watching this, and it's clearly a movie, and then
Yeah.
you realize, wow, I'm in the movie business. Here I am. It's fun when you can go walk anywhere you want and everybody knows you, and like there's something fun about that.
That's great. I'm gonna move on to The Last of Us now. Um, lots of
7%. Okay, I'm just checking my.
okay.
Yeah.
How did you get involved with this project?
The executive producer from Vancouver called me. I was working on Fraggle Rock at the time, and they just told me there's this show called The Last of Us. I didn't know about The Last of Us. I'm not a video game person. My daughter knew about it though. And she said, well, you're doing this 100%. But, and then they sent me a script, and you realized how you're like, holy, wow, this is big. I don't know. And they were in a real panic because they were coming here. So they really wanted me to interview with the designer immediately. And me and him got along right off the bat. And I just told him, as long as you guys are going to need the support to do this, then I don't know why I wouldn't do it. But I
Hmm.
still didn't realize how much of a phenomenon it was going to be, really.
Yeah.
It was going to be a big movie, a daunting task, and it's the biggest thing I've ever done. And I don't know that I'd be, I think it's its own island. I don't think many things would be that big ever
Yeah.
again. Yeah, especially because we're moving more into the visual effects world nowadays. So the fact that we built as much as we did, I think is going to start to become a thing of the past.
Hmm.
And there's going to be more set extensions by visual effects and whatnot. So this time was great because we still built entire worlds.
How did you approach this project when you started working on it? Did you look at the game with your daughter? How did that impact your work?
Yeah, we played the game and checked it out. And again, just like Ghostbusters, you're like, okay, well, this has 110 million players. I better get these Easter eggs right. So then, again, hyper focused on if it's in the. We didn't want it to be the game because the game is the game. This needed to be up a little more sophisticated. But there's certain things you just pulled directly out of the game, like you know, in just little things. You just recreate little things and let the audience find them. Don't throw them in their face. Just know but I know they're there, and I know that they know they're
Hmm. Well, when I watched the show, the decoration was the thing that stood out to me, which is why I contacted you.
there. Oh,
And
that's thanks.
yeah, and I read where you said that you were able to build so many things on a massive scale. Can you just tell me a bit more about what this was like for you, kind of like what you were talking about a little earlier?
In what sense? It, what do you mean? I
Like, well, for other projects, I'm not sure if you build things on as much of a scale, like as big of a scale, and you're able to create as big of a world for a project. Is this
right.
biggest like kind
This
of
is the biggest ever, and it'll probably be the last time I get an opportunity to work on something this big. I
hmm
mean, I don't even know if I'll go do the second season
hmm
because just due to the story, it's probably going to move geographic locations.
hmm
And as I'm not saying I won't do it, but I don't know. I sometimes just like I've been there, done that, and I want to move on too, right? It's funner to build a world than maintain one.
yeah.
So uh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I have a feeling moving forward they'll build maybe less and visual effects more, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. But
hmm
I'm glad we got to be one of those shows that still did it the old school way. You know,
Yeah. What was it like working with the designers and the creators while building this world?
it was great. It was great. I mean, hard. This is a hard movie, so emotions are high, expectations are high, financial burdens are high. Everything's high, so it's a high level. At this high level, you just got to take it with a grain of salt and not take it personally. So everybody's got their emotional times in a process like this. But overall, I enjoyed all the personalities that were involved. It or at least it was all worth it, so that I've forgotten and all the scars have healed.
Mm-hmm. What was the hardest
Yeah,
part about it for you?
it's just relentless.
Mm-hmm.
It's like doing a 100-meter dash that's like 27 miles long. Just doesn't end. It goes all the way to the end, and then it's over. And so, I mean, it was just a year and a half of just constant moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
and everything huge.
Yeah. Well, because so many of these spaces have like old deconstructing looks because of like wear and tear and time, can you talk to me about what actually goes into making things look old and creating that sort of look?
Well, that's what we have a paint department and a greens department
Mm,
that basically, because everything we're doing has to be affected. So, it's just a constant process of finding stuff, putting the stuff in place, and then having it affected by the paint department and the greens department, and not making it's and to a point where it's not comical, where it's realistic, right? And I think that was achieved. I really do,
yeah.
and and it also mirrored the game, so people still felt like we were in the game, but a higher sophisticated level of it.
Hmm. What's it like working on so many outdoor spaces and stuff like that?
Well, you just never know what you're going to get. You don't know what the weather's going to be. I mean, and in Alberta, like, the weather can change constantly. You can start out the day in a parka, and in the middle of the day you're in shorts, and you just never know what's going to happen. So you basically drive around with every piece of clothing you own, and but it also creates problems for building. You've got mud, you've got rain, you never know what's going to happen. I've seen snow every month of the year in this place, so you just don't know what's going to happen. So.
Mhm. Well, all of the post-apocalyptic like spaces are so eerily beautiful in the show. Can you tell me a bit about the process of creating the set decoration for these desolate spaces was like for you?
It just had to be particular, I guess. We really needed to know what the shot was, so that we weren't wasting our time outside of what the shot was going to be. And we couldn't always have that information, but whenever we could, when you really know what the shot's going to be on any movie, then you can really focus all your efforts there, because you're not going to see anything that's not in the shot. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about some specific places that stood out to me from the show. Immediately, I think of the Bostonian Museum from episode two, and
Yes.
and Bill and Frank's house from episode three, and the mall from episode seven. Can you tell me
Yeah.
about these spaces or any other that come to
Well,
mind for
I'd say you picked my favorites by far. The mall was a huge daunting task, but
you?
wow, we nailed it. I'll just say that right off the
Yeah.
top. And Bill and Frank's was just awesome to do, because it was the best script I've ever read in my life. So you really wanted to do it justice.
Mhm.
So it was fun to roll with, and just get into the characters' heads and figure out what they are about. And then it, like, all of those sets were built. We built all of those except for the
Yeah.
mall. The mall was an existing mall, but we still had to do a great deal of work to it. So, but yeah, and the Bostonian was just so much fun. To create a museum is fun, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, and even I, who was there, I mean, you can't believe you built this inside of a building, and yeah, and it turned out really well.
Hmm. Well, I remember where you said earlier that you did, in fact, watch the finished product. So, what was it like watching the finished product for you? What was that experience like?
It was satisfying. It was great. Again, it just erased all the pain. You
Mm-hmm.
can't do something like this and not have some pain and some scars and it erased all of it. It was so worth it. I'm so impressed by what they've done. It's and happy to be a part of it.
Hmm. Do you have any favorite memories or funny stories that stick out to you from your time working on the project?
No, because you want to know why? Because it just it was just a race. And so it's I would need a week to think about any particular moment because it was just so constant. I mean, we just worked 6 or 7 days a week forever, which I don't resent. I appreciate because once you get momentum when you're doing art at that high level, you don't want it to stop. You want the momentum to keep going. You know, you're getting the right brush strokes going. You don't want to stop and take a break. You want to keep going. So it was perfect. I loved it.
Hmm. If you could go back and do anything differently or add anything, or would you do everything the same? What do you think?
I think I'd do everything the same. I do. Yeah, I think it worked perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's not often you can say that, and I'd say that's the only time I can say that.
Hmm. Are there any other spaces that stick out to you as being your favorite to create, or ones that were most difficult to create for you?
The QZ
Mm-hmm.
was a huge task, but I still think the mall was my favorite. And Bill and Frank's. Those two were just. I loved that. The entire episode of Bill and Frank's, all of it. Just loved it. Yeah. Yeah.
You were talking about, I read earlier where you were talking about like how helpful the actors like found this world creating to be. What was it like working with the actors on this? Did you get to talk to them at all about the world or about the show?
Yeah, that's another fun part. I mean, anytime we opened a new set, they always wanted to uh, take you aside, compliment you, thank you. So that's not usual. So that was a nice change of pace. Pedro is a very classy person.
Hmm.
Um, Bella's amazing. So I mean, the cast couldn't be better. They're real human beings doing a real story, and that's really cool. I don't even think of them as actors, although I know they are. They're just I think of them first as human beings.
Hmm.
So, and that's nice. That's not always the case.
Yeah. Sort
Yeah.
of sort of a different question that for you that's kind of having to do with where it was filmed. I read where you talked a bit about how important it was for The Last of Us to be filmed in Alberta because of the need for another industry in the town. Can you talk to me a bit more about this and what it was like creating this world in Alberta?
Well, what this did for Alberta, I think, is that it showed the world that you can film something of this caliber in this province. And, we just need I think the film industry is a great industry because uh, everybody gets some money from it, and like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, everybody in town, whether they realize it or not, sure, a road might have been closed down and it might have been inconvenient for them for that day, but when hundreds of millions of dollars are dropped into your city and hotels and bakers and gas stations and everybody's getting some of it, it's just good for everyone,
Hmm.
is including the project itself. So and it's fun to be in control of distributing some of those funds to people. It's a nice feeling to be able to pay some vendors and keep them going, and it's great for them.
Hmm. Kind of a last question for you for The Last of Us before I have my little concluding questions. What did your daughter think of the show? Did you guys watch it together?
Oh, she loved it. She thinks it's amazing. Like, yeah, she thinks it's amazing. Like, she's happy that I did it for sure. I'm a bit of a flex for her for sure. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
which
good
is a
to hear.
nice feeling. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, kind of some last questions for you. One of my favorite questions to ask people when I ask like everyone I interview is if you could give your past self a piece of advice, what would it be?
uh Everything you're doing is right. Keep doing it. It's about it. you know I don't think I'd change anything that I've done, because it's never been a strategy. I've always just taken things as they come to me and figured out how to turn them into an opportunity and keep moving forward. And I've always tried to impress on people that I'm there to help them and myself. So I think that's all I would do, is just tell me, like, don't doubt yourself, keep going, you're doing the right thing. You're
Hmm.
going to end up doing The Last of Us. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about any projects you're currently working on or anything that we can look forward to look out for you in the future?
I just started a show for Netflix called The Abandons. It's it's gonna be I don't know, it's not really gonna be a Western so much as a period, a historical drama. It's really well written. It's by Kurt Sutter, who did Sons of Anarchy.
Mhm.
So it's going to have a bit of a following. And I mean, I just came back from Round Top, Texas, because we're running out of antiques, and there was an antique fair there that has 4,000 vendors, 11 miles of antiques. So that's why I've been busy. I just got back from that, and that was daunting. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. And then we'll see what happens with The Last of Us. I think I'm going to be done with it, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. It depends who the new players are and what they're going to do. And but I mean, it's I'm happy. Again, I just take life as it's dealt to me. I don't necessarily I don't necessarily try to manipulate my way into situations. I
Mhm.
just try to do the best I can, and then hopefully people will want me around.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Okay. No worries. Okay.
It was an honor speaking with you. I think your work is just amazing.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that a lot because it is hard work, and it's nice when somebody gets that.